I'm 73 years old, and here is the thing that still wakes me up some nights. Almost everything I worried about turning out wrong in my life turned out fine, and almost everything that actually mattered slipped past me while I was busy waiting for a better time. I don't say that lightly. I've lived long enough to know the difference between a bad year and a bad life. I had a career, I paid my bills, I raised a family that looks good in photographs. I was the kind of man people described as steady, reliable, sensible. If you'd met me at 50, you might have thought I had it figured out. That's why I feel like I've earned the right to say this. Not because I was special, but because I wasn't. I followed the plan. I did what made sense. I made reasonable choices and avoided obvious disasters. And I still managed to miss the point for 52 years. When I was younger, I believed time was something you spent, like money. You saved it, you wasted it, you invested it. I believed I was being careful with it. I believed I was being responsible. I told myself there would be time later to rest, later to talk, later to enjoy what I was building. Later became my favorite word. I grew up in a house where nothing was ever said directly. You learnt by watching. My father worked until his hands shook. My mother kept the house quiet and clean and never complained. Love was there, I think, but it stayed behind the eyes. I learnt early that doing your duty mattered more than saying how you felt, that showing up mattered more than opening up. So I became very good at showing up. I showed up to work every day. I showed up to meetings. I showed up to birthdays with a gift in my hand and my mind somewhere else. I showed up tired and told myself it was normal. Everyone was tired. That's what being an adult was, right? There was a woman once, my wife. We met young. We were practical with each other. We talked about houses and schools and budgets. We didn't talk much about fear or hope or what kept us awake at night. We assumed we'd get to that later, once things settled down. Things never settled down. They just kept moving. I remember one evening, maybe 30 years ago, standing in the kitchen while she washed dishes. The light above the sink was too bright. She looked older than she had that morning. She asked me something simple. I don't even remember what it was. I remember thinking about a problem at work while she spoke. I nodded. She stopped talking halfway through her sentence. I didn't notice right away. When I finally looked up, she was just standing there, hands in the water, staring at the window. I asked what was wrong. She said nothing, and I let that be the end of it. I told myself we'd talk later. Later, the kids were grown. Later, work slowed down. Later, when we weren't so tired. I was always tired. From the outside, my life looked full. From the inside, it felt postponed. Like a room I kept meaning to walk into but never quite did. There were small moments I ignored because they seemed small. My son asking if I wanted to throw a ball. My daughter lingering in the doorway like she wanted to say something. Friends inviting me out on a weekday night and me saying maybe next time, always next time. I thought saying no today meant saying yes tomorrow. What I didn't understand was that every no teaches people how to live without you. Years passed quietly. No big explosions, no dramatic failures, just a slow thinning, fewer calls, shorter conversations, birthdays marked with messages instead of visits. I noticed it, but I didn't panic. I told myself this was how life went. People drifted. That was normal. I was proud of how calm I stayed about everything, how controlled, how composed. I didn't realize calm can also be a kind of sleep. There was a morning not long ago when I woke up and felt something I couldn't name. Not pain exactly, just a heaviness, like my body had aged overnight. I sat on the edge of the bed and waited for it to pass. It didn't. I didn't tell anyone at first. I waited. I always waited. When I finally went to see a doctor, I joked about it. I joked about everything. Humor made it feel smaller. He didn't laugh. He ordered tests. More waiting. During that waiting, something strange happened. Time slowed down. The days felt louder. Ordinary sounds bothered me. The refrigerator humming. The clock ticking. I started noticing things I hadn't paid attention to in years. the way sunlight landed on the floor, the way my hands looked older than I felt. I thought a lot about my life during those weeks. Not in a dramatic way, just little scenes replaying themselves without asking permission. Moments I had brushed aside, conversations I'd cut short, promises I'd made to myself and never kept. I thought about how often I'd told myself I'd start living once I felt secure. Secure never arrived. The test results came back on a Tuesday. The doctor used careful words. I focused on his mouth moving. I nodded in the right places. I asked practical questions. How long? What next? What could be done? On the drive home, I pulled over for no reason at all. I sat there with the engine running and realized something that felt embarrassingly obvious. This wasn't the tragedy, this was just the announcement. The real loss had already happened. Slowly, over decades, I had spent my life preparing for a future I wouldn't fully enter. That night, I called my children. I told them what the doctor said. They were kind, concerned. They asked if I needed anything. I told them no. Old habits die hard. After the calls ended, the house felt enormous. Not empty, just quiet in a way that felt permanent. I thought about all the times I'd left early, all the times I'd chosen the sensible option, all the times I'd told myself I was being mature when really I was being afraid. Afraid to feel too much, afraid to say the wrong thing, afraid to admit I wanted more than I had. I had told myself wanting more was ungrateful, so I settled for less. I don't regret not being famous or rich or admired. I regret the pauses, the delays, the assumption that life was something that would begin once everything was in order. If you're listening to this, I wonder what you're waiting for. I wonder what you keep telling yourself you'll do later. I wonder who you assume will always be there. Do you think you have time because you haven't been given a reason to think otherwise yet? I did too. No one ever sits you down and tells you the last ordinary day you'll have. It just passes unnoticed, like all the others. And then one day you look back and realize how many of them you spent distracted. I used to believe regret came from big mistakes. It doesn't. It comes from silence, from hesitation, from choosing comfort over honesty again and again until honesty feels unfamiliar. There are things I never said because I didn't know how to say them calmly. There are apologies I postponed because they felt awkward. There are hugs I didn't give because they felt unnecessary. They were never unnecessary. I thought love was understood. I thought it didn't need repeating. I was wrong. Love that isn't expressed doesn't disappear. It just becomes a question mark in someone else's memory. Sometimes I imagine going back to one random afternoon. Nothing special, just a Tuesday. I imagine staying present, listening longer, saying what I felt instead of what sounded reasonable. I imagine choosing connection over efficiency. That's all it would have taken. Not a different life, just more attention inside the one I had. Now days feel different. Not dramatic, just sharper. I notice when the phone doesn't ring. I notice when my energy runs out sooner than it used to. I notice how careful people are with their words around me. I don't blame them. I was careful my whole life. There are moments of peace. There are moments of sadness. Mostly there is clarity. And clarity is heavy when it arrives this late. I don't know how much time I have. The numbers don't matter as much as the feeling. The feeling is that the room is quieter now. Like the party is winding down and the music is low enough to hear your own thoughts. If I could give you anything, it wouldn't be advice. I don't trust advice anymore. It would be awareness, the kind that makes you look at today as something that won't come back. You don't need to fix your whole life. You don't need to quit your job or move across the world. You just need to stop assuming. Stop assuming you'll feel like this forever. Stop assuming people know what they mean to you. Stop assuming you'll get around to it. I assumed my way right out of the moments that mattered. I'm not angry about it, just honest. This is what it feels like to realize the cost of waiting when there's no longer much left to wait with. If you're younger than me, you still have time. Not infinite time, just time. Enough to choose differently in small ways. Enough to be here instead of elsewhere. And if you're my age or older, Maybe you understand exactly what I'm saying without me having to finish the thought. I'm 73 years old. It took me 52 years to learn this. I don't know why it took that long. I only know it didn't have to. I'll sit with that now. That's all there really is to do.